A lot of people, including myself at times, have felt stuck in life. And I think it relates back to this book that this nurse wrote, this palliative care nurse, and she wrote, it was about the top regrets of the dying. She interviewed people that were dying and asked them what their regrets were. And the number one regret of the dying, from what she found, was not living a life true to themselves. And I think it's a big reason why so many of us have felt kind of stuck or lost or just lacking meaning or fulfillment in life, because we're deep down, we're like, well, was this all there is? Just, make money, buy things, go on trips. Like, there's got to be more to it than that. And in this video, I want to talk about why I think so many of us feel this way or have felt this way, and hopefully how to get out of it if you find that you're in this spot. Some things that have helped me and some things that I continually go back to, because it's you can fall back into that feeling of not really living a life that's true to you, or feeling lost, not really knowing what direction to go. And so I think it's a big piece of feeling fulfilled in life is feeling like you're living a life that is aligned to you, to your true self, if you will, your most authentic self. And I think, this is true across the board in terms of relationships, career, hobbies, just how you spend your life. So many of us spend our lives trying to please other people, avoid being judged, trying to fit the mold of what other people think we should be, or what society tells us we should be. And in doing that, we aren't living a life that's true to ourselves. Kind of like the regret of the people that are dying. And I know in my life I fall into that. I've gotten to a point where I'm like, what's the point of all of this? Why am I doing this? And it wasn't until I started asking myself those questions, sitting with myself, what is it that I actually want out of life? Why am I doing these things? Why do I feel so drained when I engage in certain activities or spend time with certain people or whatever? And why am I doing this? And I think a lot of it comes down to sometimes we prefer a familiar hell than an unfamiliar heaven. It's uncomfortable to basically let some of these things go, because whether it's a career or relationships, or whether it's romantic or friendships, or certain habits or behaviors or whatever, it shapes who we are to some extent, who we see ourselves to be. And it becomes comfortable and known for us, and it keeps us feeling safe. The biggest question that our nervous system is always looking at is, are we safe? Are we comfortable? Is everything good? And if things are known and comfortable and familiar, then you're going to feel safe. So because of that, we tend to live by that mold, by the conditioning, doing things to be accepted, doing things because of the fear of what happens if we don't do these things. Well, I need to have this specific job, because if I don't, there's nothing else that I'm good at, and I won't be able to make money or whatever. And I know what it's like to go in one direction because you think that's what you want to do, and realize it's not for you, and then decide to do something different and not really know exactly what that's going to look like. And I know how scary that can be, but what I will say is that it's worth it. You wouldn't be watching me on this screen right now if I didn't do that. Most likely not. So I know what it's like to feel that unease of stepping into the unknown and basically letting a part of yourself go, the part of you that attached to a certain future, idea, outcome, whatever it is, relationship. And I've come to realize that the importance of listening to yourself and following that. even though it might lead you to being misunderstood by other people. People are gonna, maybe you don't know what people are gonna think, and quite frankly, you can't control that. And not really, it's none of your business either. But I think that's what holds a lot of us back from really following our hearts, following our gut, doing what we feel called to do, or what we feel would be really true to us or authentic to us. And that's if you have that deep, call or understanding within. A lot of us don't really know what to do. We're just kind of like, all I know is I feel stuck, lost, and I don't want to do this. And there's a couple different things that have helped me in my life in terms of those things. I think that when we are so disconnected from ourselves, living from fear, living from, to please other people, to be accepted, to avoid being shamed or whatever, we become very disconnected from ourselves, from that intuitive guidance within, or just understanding who we actually are, because we've abandoned ourselves to actually just try and be accepted by the whole, by the masses or whatever, to try and be understood, But in the end, we end up just sacrificing ourselves, and then I imagine we get to the end of our lives and have the same regret that, man, it was so short. And looking back on it, those fears it wasn't worth it. For me to not live a life that was true to me. Like, what would have happened if I would have just decided to follow that passion, or if I, whatever it was, I'm sure there's things that are coming into your mind right now for you in your own life. For me, it was largely career-based, passion-based. Like, if I felt like I wanted to do certain things, relationship-based, am I really aligned with certain people? And it's uncomfortable because it leads you into this space of just emptiness. What was filling your life for that period of time, whether it was habits, relationships, career, whatever, is replaced with space. And many of us are uncomfortable with space. Even think about conversations. How often is there just a quiet space in a conversation with people? I think a lot of people are scared to have that space so we always need to be saying something. We always need to be asking a question, filling in a gap with some sort of word or something. And brings me to my point that I think many of us are, uncomfortable with just space in life. Even if just to sit with yourself and not have something to do, not to stimulate our mind, not to distract ourselves, but to just be. And what I've realized is that is the foundation for actually getting in touch with yourself and knowing, what direction do I actually want to go in? What feels best for me right now? You actually get back in touch with yourself. And that's the place you want to be if you want to live a life that is true to you. It's very difficult to live a life that's true or aligned with you if your mind is too cluttered and you're too busy distracting, stimulating, living from fear, living from shame, trying to please people. That becomes kind of your existence, really. And you never get in touch with that deeper part of yourself. And so spaciousness, not having something to do all the time, is really valuable. Reminds me of a quote, Lao Tzu's quote: the emptiness of a cup is what gives it its functionality, essentially. So if you had a cup or a bowl, and it's the empty space inside that actually makes it useful. And I think the same is true with us in life. To have emptiness is actually very useful for being able to listen to your intuition, listen to your gut feelings, get more in tune with yourself. Rumi, another quote, Rumi had a great quote: the quieter you get, the more you can hear. So what happens when we are so attached to this old version of ourselves, whether it's the one that is attached to, being with certain friendships or in relationships that really aren't aligned with you. And in being in those relationships, they anchor you back to the old version of yourself that you're trying to break free of. That's the version of you that's disconnected from who you really are. The one that's trying to fit a mold, that's trying to be someone that you're really not. And again, in holding on to these things, it prevents you from branching off and going in a different path. The way I like to look at it is like you have two paths in life, and for a long time they're next to each other, side by side, they're parallel. One is the path of following your true self, your authentic self, one that's aligned, following your heart, whatever. The other one is this other path of, well, I'm going to do what the crowd thinks I should do, or who my parents said I should be, or my wife or girlfriend or boyfriend or husband or friends or whoever told me I should be or want me to be. And you can kind of entertain both those paths for a while, but eventually they start to diverge. They start to kind of split off. It's a fork in the road. And when that happens, you can't have one foot on either path, on both paths. You have to have 2 feet on one path and actually start to walk in that direction. And that's where things start to get really uncomfortable, because you have to choose. And I've come to realize that if you don't choose yourself, you lose yourself. And losing yourself is what causes us to feel lost, to feel this lack of meaning, this lack of purpose, this questioning what we're even doing here. Then we get caught up in the superficial chase, the external chase of, okay, well, now I need to make more money. Now I need a nicer car. Now I need a bigger house. Now I need better vacations. And that hamster wheel doesn't slow down. It actually speeds up the more you live from that place. And the more unfulfilled you feel on a deep level. Sure, you might have lots of things. You might have lots of external success. But I've come to realize that external achievements doesn't necessarily give you the meaning or the fulfillment that you really want in life, if that's the sole purpose. It can definitely contribute to grow and to expand, but it's usually the pursuit itself that gives you that meaning. That's what I've found anyways. So when you decide that you want to stay on the path that's actually true to you and go off in this direction rather than that direction, you create a lot of space in your life, but that's not a bad thing. Because the things that were taking up space in your life that weren't aligned with you prevented the things that are aligned with you from coming into your life, from you actually being able to find those things, or for them to be able to find you. But as long as we hold on to those relationships or those habits, or again, whatever it is, the more you're delaying and pushing away the things that would actually give you that deep sense of enrichment in life from coming into your life. But you have to let go of yourself first, unfortunately. You have to let the old part of yourself go. The one that is living from fear or shame, or not wanting to be judged, or not wanting to be misunderstood, or just wanting to be accepted. And this is the internal work. Because a lot of times we trade ourselves for some external thing because of what we think it will give us. And I can tell you right now that it won't give you those things, those deep things that you're seeking. It won't give you those things for any lasting period of time. It's just a little blip of dopamine or, feel-good neurotransmitters, novelty. And it goes away, and then you feel more empty. But living in alignment with who you are and knowing who you are, that's where real meaning or fulfillment is built, I think anyways. That's my own experience. And the success or the relationships come from that in a more authentic and natural way. The relationships that actually are aligned with who you are and actually fill up your cup. And maybe you don't even need as many relationships in your life anymore because the ones that you have are really, really solid and really uplifting and inspiring and supportive. And the career you have, you know, maybe it's not the same as the career you were doing before, but it's much more enriching for you. It's this term called Meraki, which is basically your work is an expression of your soul. Now that's winning to me. That's real success in life when you can wake up in the morning and love the life that you're building. You're not chasing things to try and fill some sort of void within yourself, you know? Now, it doesn't mean that you don't go out and pursue, but the pursuit isn't the purpose. It's not purpose. Knowing who you are and living from that place is really the I don't know, the prize, if you will. So learning to let go of the old parts of yourself to allow the new parts to come in is probably the most intimidating and uncomfortable part about it, because you're stepping into the unfamiliar hell that your nervous system really doesn't like. And like I said, this is where the inner work comes in. Because when you cultivate that relationship with you, that really strong sense of self, that you know who you are, you like who you are, you wouldn't sacrifice or abandon yourself, you're okay. You don't need those external things to try and make yourself feel better. Sure, they might come, but it's not the purpose, like I said. You have yourself. It goes back to this other quote that I really like, and it doesn't matter how deep the water is when you know how to swim. Because when you know how to swim, you have the tools and the resources with yourself to manage the circumstances outside of you. Manage yourself in those circumstances. So when you're letting go of the old parts of yourself that you kind of used as a crutch to feel safe or good about yourself in some way, you don't need those anymore when you have this strong sense of who you are. You know how to swim. And so when you're alone, or when you're misunderstood, or when you're being judged, or whatever, it doesn't matter, because you can manage you. You know who you are. You've accepted yourself. You've done this internal work of being able to regulate yourself despite any discomfort. Doesn't mean that some days aren't harder than others, but it doesn't matter how deep the water is when you know how to swim. So if you ever find yourself in a place where you're like, man, like, is this all there is to life? This is kind of shitty and, boring or purposeless or whatever. Maybe you're like me and you're just a little disconnected from who you are or who you want it to be, who that deeper part of yourself was really calling out for you to be, to return back to yourself. So I hope this video helps you kind of reevaluate some things if you feel like you're in that place, and maybe give you a bit of a roadmap to hopefully come back to yourself. Remember, spaciousness, emptiness is not a bad thing. It actually allows you to get back in touch with you so you can be guided more accurately in life, in a more aligned sense with who you are. And again, then things naturally fall into place for you. But you don't need it anymore because you're feeling more whole within yourself. So needing to chase things outside of you to feel that sense of wholeness doesn't really exist anymore. Sure, at times, for sure. But then you can catch yourself. You can breathe and you can learn to regulate. I've really come to realize that this is the path, and it's not a perfect path in the sense that like life is just sunshine and rainbows, but it is a more secure path in the sense that you feel better and more whole moving forward, managing, discomfort, relationships, making decisions on what would lead you to a happier, more fulfilling life. and the discomfort that at one time you would have covered up with trying to please other people, buy more things, distract yourself, stimulate yourself. Instead, you take the road that will put an end to those compulsive, dysregulated patterns that are, from fear or whatever. So I hope this helps. Remember, if you don't choose yourself, you lose yourself. So see you in the next video.